Are we going to use the technology from what's on the Hadean series onto future products? Watch this space.
Welcome back to another episode of the eSKATE Chat podcast. This is the first one since we have released the Hadean board. I know Jeff especially has been chomping at the bit to start talking about this.
All very excited. I think we all are, really. There's been so much action and talk, and it's been a chaotic time, but happy days.
Awesome. So what we did was we jumped on Instagram and we did the ask a question and we said, what do you want to know about the Hadean? So on this episode, all we're going to do is run through everyone's questions and talk about anything people want to know about the Hadean. We'll kick it off with, this actually came through more than once. How do you pronounce it?
Oh, okay. It's Hadean. Do you guys have another version? Range test for the Hadean series boards. New Hadean series, test number 2 on the new Hadean boards. I think that's it, isn't it?
If you look it up online, that's how it sort of identifies to pronounce it, Hadean.
Yeah, so hay, not had.
Yeah.
It's not had. Hadean.
A lot of us, when we came up with the name, were saying Hadean. And then so there was some correction around the office and we all then had to, get it right. Hadean.
It's not Hadean.
Hadean.
or
I've heard somebody say Hadean.
I mean, that's interesting. All right. Next question up is, I'm new to skateboarding. Should I get one?
You go first, Nick.
Yeah, recommend anybody try any board, really. Look, anybody new to skateboarding, you got to jump on a board. Obviously, make sure you're comfortable with it. The board's brilliant. I think it'd be a great introduction to skateboarding. It's smooth in every way. It's got that performance. I think it's going to sort of, keep them on that product for a long time. And the board just also feels stable. It's got a lot of features on it over previous ones that I think is really going to give that new rider a benefit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And, although the board is hugely powerful and it's got ridiculous range of performance, you can wind that back and use it as a complete beginner board if you want to. You can wind that current down, set your acceleration curves to soft or soft anything, braking and acceleration. So it is actually a fantastic beginner board if you set it right. So you can grow into it, turn into the full professional, and then just fang it when you're ready.
That's a good point. You definitely can grow into it.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going to have to buy another board 6 months down the track.
And that's completely correct. And, you don't have to jump on it and go 50K an hour straight out of the box. We recommend not doing that.
That's right.
Sort of leads on to the next question, which got asked quite a bit, especially during the launch campaign. Why is it more expensive than the GTR?
Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, and I think we can all sort of chime in for our own point of view.
Yeah.
Basically, especially on the carbon, there's a lot more to it. The motors are way more powerful. They're a lot larger. There's more battery cells, and the cells are larger in size. The motor controller uses completely different componentry, really high quality components. The forged carbon deck is a unique product to make. There's a lot more to it, and not to mention, we're certainly living in a world where things are hard to get at the moment. There's a chip shortage, hard to get MOSFETs. We're seeing prices going up all over the place. Shipping costs, trying to run a business. It's not easy producing and maintaining, an electric skateboard, and then when you compare it to the existing GTR series. It is more expensive, but it's not a GTR replacement. This is a whole new product line, and it offers a lot more, and it's on a different level. So things do cost more money.
Yeah, and I think in addition to the actual physical product side of things as well, there's the amount of sort of development that's gone into it as well, and the design aspect, and getting that big package into a board that is still the same size as the GTR physically was, we know it wasn't a small task to sort of get that and to have it still feeling like a nice, light, nimble board and not something larger. So I think, there's a lot of development in the back end that went into not only that design aspect, but even the operational aspects and components to get them to integrate to work with that.
Yeah, so you're right, man. That's well said, and it's true. This has been a project that's been ongoing for a long time for us. the amount of time and money that we've spent just getting it to where it is, just even, before tooling stage was huge for us. And then going through the IP process, it's not an easy task trying to make a performance electric skateboard for under $3,000. Yeah.
And I think if you were to compare the physical components into that, looking at that size and that development there, and I said this to somebody, if you were to put that battery into a GTR deck, the battery itself would take up nearly the entire enclosure. So then to still fit a BMS and a motor controller in the same physical size,
you can't do it.
Great undertaking.
And then in terms of the performance as well, it's not a marginal increase on the GTR board.
Not by any standards.
Yeah, like we're talking double the power output, 37% of the capacity. It's not just a little step up.
Yeah, I look, we've had these conversations so many times over the last 18 months, all three of us. We're the ones who've been riding it the most at the end of the day. And we talk about how great it is to have that extra range and that extra acceleration. But where you really notice the difference, and it's hard to actually put a number on it is the power. And it's not just acceleration. We're talking, being able to have that torque all the way through the range, going up hills, not just once, but just constantly. Yeah. And the system can handle it. That's very hard to compare that power and that performance side of it to the GTR. It's on a different level. When you compare just the range, though, it's easier to get more of a spec, but the power and performance, it's hard to, really say what the difference is. It's a lot more than double. It's hard to put a number on it.
All those things said, let's quickly take a look at the first question again.
Yeah.
If you're trying to get your first board, this is sort of the point of a range of boards, right? Yeah. So not everyone always needs the biggest, baddest thing out there. Yeah. If you look in the automotive industry, motorbikes, mountain bikes, or across to phones, TVs, you don't necessarily need the biggest and the best. If you're the sort of person that knows that you're going to be like, I want more out of this thing, the Hadeon's for you.
Yeah, and I think that the call, you can grow into it. That's a big one. It's going to serve you for a lot longer, and that's why we made it, because there's a lot of GTR customers out there who just frothing for when they first got the board for a few months, and then after a few months they're just going, I wish I had that little bit extra range, or I wish it went that little bit faster, or I wish I could go up that steeper hill for longer. And that's why we made this board. At the end of the day, for those that want that bit extra, but you don't necessarily have to have it. GTR can serve its purpose, for the majority of people out there who, ride electric skateboards.
There was a lot of questions come in really just on the top line specs. So rather than answering them all individually, let's just run through a couple of them.
Yep.
Speed.
So top speed, straight out of the box, 50k an hour for the street board and 42 for the AT.
We'll chuck up a graphic for the miles.
Yes.
Range.
So 40 kilometres in the all-terrain and 65 on the street.
Battery capacity.
So we're looking at 691 watt-hour.
And the configuration of the battery?
12S 4P using 21700 cells.
Cool. Weight is about, 2 kilos heavier than the GTR board, but the physical size of it is pretty much the same?
It's 2.5, I think.
It's about 2.5 give or take. So it's around 12.5 for the carbon, and it's around 13.5 for the bamboo total. So it's like you said, about 2 kilos.
Yeah, the AT boards between the carbon and bamboo are very similar.
Yeah.
The carbon is just a tad lighter, but then when you set it up the street, it's a little bit lighter again, so it's in the 12s.
And that weight predominantly comes from, obviously, you've got an extra 8 larger cells and 2 much larger motors.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, of course. Onto the bamboo board, does it still have USB ports?
It does have 2 ports at the back. They're not USB though, and the purpose for it is for our prism strip lights, and they're going to basically connect the same way they do with on the carbon with the brake light. So you can't put USBs in there, but there are ports, and we're going to have these prism strips available really soon. So it'll be great we know that the carbon has those integrated lights, so we want to offer that on the bamboo, and it's more of an external accessory. Does exactly the same thing, that you can use your app, you can change the lights, you can use your remote, you can change the lights, and it works with the braking.
Can riders use the phase remote on their GTR?
At the moment, no. So in the future, there will be an option, but right now it's just for the Hadean.
Yeah, just for the Hadean, but we are going to make it available for GTR customers, and it's going to be the same remote structurally. When we do release it, we'll have some new features of it that won't work. You can't have the lights, but it'll still have the same look and feel and function. It's just going to have different firmware and softwares in it.
There you go. So for GTR and Stoke customers, something to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. I know there's a lot of people frothing for that.
Yeah.
It's good remote. Since we've redesigned the decks, we did both of them. The carbon obviously got a bit more work.
Yep.
Are they still structurally able to hold the same weight of rider?
I think that's probably a you question.
Yeah. So yeah, the answer is yes. So the bamboo construction's pretty similar in terms of its strength. It still uses a fiberglass reinforcement, bamboo and maple, is it?
Yeah.
Yep. The carbon we swapped to the forge, obviously, which has some strength benefits. We did that with the chassis frame, and we've upped the weight limit to 120 kilograms, back from 100. So that's our highest rated board.
Yep.
And the electronic system makes a huge difference for heavy riders.
Yeah, definitely.
Like really, really big difference. If you're up near the 100 kilo mark, the Hadean is it's a whole new world of riding.
Yep.
Is the bamboo board still flexible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. Yeah, it's still got that really nice controlled flex, and it's something about it. Like, it does just feel really good. And I think that's a combination of using the fiberglass sort of layers in there as well. It just really gives a nice controlled flex.
All the earlier prototypes that we made with our deck factory, after we made the tooling and molding, the first samples were too flexy.
Yeah.
They didn't quite get this right, and we had a lot of adjustments during that process. And however, we're happy with the production decks now. It's much stronger. It's got a nice spring underneath. It's a different feel, and I think there's a little bit more flex in this compared to the bamboo GTR, just a little bit more.
It's a little bit longer, so
Fraction longer,
that might play into it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Water resistance. What is the water resistance like on the Hadean?
Well, let's talk the carbon first. Yep. The way the carbon is assembled and made, it's very different to how the GTR is. In the GTR, there's just one molded deck with a cavity, and there's one seal on top. On the carbon, we've got a big hole in the deck, and it's a separate battery case which has its own seal. Then the top lid, the carbon lid, has its own seal up there. There's a lip that runs around the chassis frame, which is also there's a seal on that, a foam seal, which stops any water coming through. And then the motor controller itself has its own seal when it's all sort of pressed together. So there's like a variety of seals on the carbon, and we're pretty happy with how it is. It's very watertight. We're never going to say it's like completely waterproof, because we know that things can change depending on how the customer uses a board, if they take things apart. And we know people will just decide to try to ride it underwater. So we want to avoid that.
Nick, obviously, he's done it.
But we have to do it to understand what the limits are, just like what we did with the remote. Like we threw it and dropped it and drove over it.
Find out what that breaking point is.
Yeah, you need to know how tight it is. And on the bamboo, you can answer that one.
Yeah, so bamboo, very much same. Like, we've gone to the same kind of lengths to try and protect it and seal it up. So it still has like a nice sort of seal around the perimeter of where the cases meet. This is in an overmold with the lid. And then similar to the carbon, it also has like a nice silicon sort of matte seal around the ESC and the heatsink where it all presses in. And there's a nice ridge around there that contacts with. And it's kind of got 2 contact points there for sealing as well. And then the ports out the back kind of have 2, points of sealing as well. They've got like an external, like an internal grommet. Again, it's something we've tried to look at pretty carefully and tried to make sure everything's really well protected.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen some questions around on the carbon, because we've got those air vents that run through, and some people have certainly think that air vents are exposed into the electronics inside. To answer that question, they're not exposed to electronics. It's a separate cavity that runs through the side. And we've, like Nick said, we've got a silicon seal that seals that whole heatsink area up. That cavity is a separate piece to the electronics, and that's a huge bit of CNC forged aluminium that runs across it. So that helps with that heat dissipation, and then having the air running through that, again, that helps keep that heat sink nice and cool. The motor control just doesn't get hot.
That's good.
Yep.
Where do I find a local supplier?
Okay. Can
I
answer
can
that.
probably do that.
Yeah.
So the easiest way to do it is if you know where your local country is, you go to their website, but one step back, evolveskateboards.com has a whole list of countries. You pick your country. We have 14 distributors servicing 45 countries. Then you'll find your correct distributor and you can go directly to them, or they'll have a retailer list on their website. And then that steps down again. And there's hundreds of retailers around the world. Hadians won't be in those stores to demo until at least September. And that's dependent on the retailer themselves, what they sort of do with it. But reach out to your local distributor and they'll be able to tell you what's to go.
Cool.
Can I purchase a Hadean with knobby tires?
Yes, you certainly can. And yeah, I mean, if you're riding off road regularly, like the knobby tires are a great addition. Like they really make a big difference.
You can really feel it on grass, man. I had these new ones the other day on the oval when we're doing all the SOC testing, and like it just held around those corners compared to the slicks. There was definitely a performance difference.
Well, I mean, we rode them in Tassie on those trails, and like there's no way we could have done some of those berms and tracks as we did with slicks. Like it just wouldn't have held on the same. So yeah, if you're riding off road, definitely good addition.
Yeah, awesome. So the board builder itself is going to be live with the Hadean pretty much now or very soon.
Yes.
But in the meantime, you can just reach out to our customer service staff and they'll hook you up and set it all up.
They'll be able to look after you.
A similar question, because a lot of people buying the Hadean also have GTR boards. They're looking at street AT 2-in-1.
Yep.
Can the GTR street conversion kit go on the Hadean?
Yes. It's a direct swap.
Exactly.
Let's expand on that in terms of how they have to deal with all their existing wheels and hubs.
All right. Well, on the street, it's exactly the same as the GTR. It uses the same rear axle. You can use the same drive gears. And same wheels and belts. So it's pretty simple. On the street, it's just a straight 1-for-1 swap. If you've got a GTR, you can put any wheels and gears on it that you already have on your Hadean. You can talk the AT.
So the all-terrain, the main difference is we've changed the all-terrain hub, which means we changed the gear. So they can still put all their old AT kits on if they swap the whole hubs and everything over the drive gear. Otherwise, they can swap tires to the Hadean hubs.
Yeah.
But that's the only change.
It's just the drive gear. So the Hadean has a new drive gear. And then if you want to put your old hubs on, if it's a color that you like, you have to use the other drive gear.
And they're both 66 too, so there's no changes in anything like that.
It doesn't change performance or anything like that,
Change the hubs, change the gears, and you're good to go.
Yep.
Cool. Can I put Hadean parts on my GTR? So I guess this sort of covers the hardware, and then people are asking about the electronics as well.
So, okay, onto the wheels and gears. Okay, you can put the new Hadean hubs in AT mode on the GTR. That's backwards compatible. That's all. That's all good.
Gears,
Yep. Other than that, that's it.
Yeah.
You can't put the motors on the GTR. Just doesn't fit.
None of the electronics will integrate with a GTR. They're all very different in terms of how they integrate with each other. None of the connectors are the same. None of the actual spatial fitting is the same.
They're just too big.
Yeah. I mean, so in terms of like operating system, you can't fit anything to your GTR, unfortunately.
During testing, what sort of issues did we face, such as overheating and things like that?
A long time to discharge the batteries. I just want to get that one out.
Yeah, well, I think onto the batteries, I think the biggest one for us, and it's just taken us so long, so much test riding, real world riding, was getting the battery percentage right, getting the SOC reading correctly on the remote. And it's crucial as a rider. You want it to be accurate. You want it to display in real time. So getting it all the way down to 0% from 100, that's taken us ages, man. Like
It sounds so simple, but all we're trying to do is get it to charge to 100% and then go down to 0%.
yeah.
And you want it to do it in a way that protects the battery under any possible riding circumstance. So, you know, even at the bottom end of the battery with maximum load, getting it perfect so it can't, you know, over discharge the cells in any case. And, you know, every time we made that adjustment, we then had to discharge the battery again. And so every time we've made those adjustments, it's another cycle. And so that's probably been the most time consuming out of anything I would have said.
Again, this is all software related.
Yeah.
And the software part of this whole product has been the most time consuming. And, you know, getting the UI, the display on the remote, and then making those functions work.
Yeah.
You know, activating them and coding them right. And so it has taken us just a long time. I reckon all that kind of stuff, though, that's sort of been happening, you know, the last sort of 6 months. But if you take it back, you know, the first 6 months of our development, it was all around, you know, actually getting an acceleration and brake feeling just right. And again, that took us a long time because we haven't played with FOC before.
And really dialing it in to, you know, like we all know FOC performs differently, and we wanted to still have that, you know, off the mark acceleration like we're all used to with the GTRs and the GTs, and trying to get that same performance and, you know, really pushing what we could get out of it.
That was our biggest complaint right at the beginning when we first developed the firmware for it. Yeah, I loved how quiet and it was in acceleration and braking, but it just had nothing in the front end. When you pull the trigger, it just didn't punch. Yeah. But then it wound out as you got through the trigger, the rest of it. And so it almost, it was like this, went like that, this curve. So we had to somehow get around that. So that took us ages.
Yeah. But I think like when we look at it like in terms of, you know, what issues did we face during it, I think it was really just dialing in a lot of those sort of parameters and operating grounds. Like in terms of like structural performance issues, I don't know that we really ran into that much this time around, because, you know, we carried over like the same basic structure of like the battery using the PCB, and we know that structure's pretty solid now. Like it's been in use for like 2 years of GTR plus the development for that, and, you know, that's pretty well dialed in. So I think we had really good success with that. We didn't really have any issues with batteries.
Yeah. And, you know, onto the design of the motor controller itself, you know, even before we made our first sample, you know, we had to change the componentry layout, the schematics, like quite a few times. So in theory, on paper, it all should work. And, you know, we made a lot of changes, you know, back then, especially when we first started. It took us a while to dial that in.
I think we had some supply issues with some of the chips, and we had to sort of look for some alternatives in early stage of development. Mm-hmm. I think that was like a bit of one of our issues where we had to then look at another processor and, you know, then rework with that one, make sure it was all going to work the same way we wanted to and not cause any issues. And so just some of those things, like as standard COVID stuff, supply issues, and just general.
Yeah, and lucky we had the lab tests as well, so most of the issues or failures were found at that stage. So by the time it got into a board, it was pretty sound.
Yeah, well, before we even put it in a board, we'd already done like sustained current draw testing, heat testing, load testing. Like, you know, we'd already done like a lot of that in a controlled environment to make sure we knew it was sound and solid. And so it was just up to us to put it to its paces in real world.
Yeah. I just still remember the first time we tested it. It was on that 3D printed case on the Bamboo GTR deck, duct taped together. And I remember when we first accelerated, we were like, oh, wow. You know, it's so quiet, but geez, it just ramped up really quick. Weak at the start, and then it just quickly ramped. We couldn't. And again, I remember one of the hardest ones we struggled with was trying to maintain a speed
without it creeping up.
Yeah, because you pull your trigger and you say you hold like 60% in. It wasn't holding the speed. It just kept them wanting to creep up or they creep back, and so that took us about I'd say a good month to get right.
I'm going to throw a question in because people didn't ask too much about the software because they don't know what we've done for a lot of these things. What are some of the cool things we put in terms of board diagnostics, other features, safety prompts, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, we've a lot of people will be happy that we brought back the battery cell data, so people can view the individual cells and the total voltage on that screen. For customer side of things, like that's probably one of the main features that people are going to sort of notice and really enjoy having back. For some people won't care about it, and that's cool. But in terms of like sort of back end diagnostics and stuff, we've actually got a lot more features that customers may not see, but will help us in sort of back end. And this has sort of helped us with setting up these SOCs. And, that's like a BMS with a Bluetooth module, so we can actually talk to the BMS and, get certain readings and recordings out of it. So there's a lot of these features in the back end there, which has really been a big step up from what we've had previously.
Yeah, and a couple of cool features too that what we found, a lot of people, when they use the product, say they rock up somewhere and they start talking to someone, and our old GTRs, our existing GTRs, they time out after 5 minutes, and then you go to use the board and you goes, oh shit, it turned off, it just disconnected, and then you have to press the button in and let it go and then push it back in. So what we've done is for this, we've got a sleep function, and then after 5 minutes, if the button's still pressed in, the whole board goes into the sleep mode. It looks like it's off, but it's actually still on, and it'll last like that in that mode for about 3 hours.
Yep.
And then you can wake it up by just touching the brake, and it's a really cool feature. You don't have to then bend down and turn it off and on. So
it's a long way from that.
Yeah, I used it at the group ride the other day. On the weekend, we went to Grilled with a bunch of the local crew, and I just put my Hadean on the wall. Everyone else had to turn it off and do that whole thing. That's cool. We were there for half an hour, and then it was good to go. It was just so much easier.
Yeah, I think actually one big feature, this may not seem like a big feature to some, that I've really enjoyed is having that sort of back function in the remote.
Oh, that's really cool.
Being able to double click the dead man and go back a screen. So especially when you're setting up your lights, setting your light color, your function, your strength, and all that, you're not having to exit out of a menu and go back in. Like you can just go back and forth in and out of whatever menus you want. And I think the other big one is the trigger reset.
I used it the other day.
Yeah, because you dropped it.
Yeah, we were testing. It was in my helmet, and I flinged my helmet and the remote went flying out. And then next time I turned the remote on, it dinged me.
Yep.
It's taken note that my triggers were not in alignment, and it's prompted me to do the trigger reset. And it's just a graphic which tells you exactly what to do. Push the brake in for 2 seconds, let go, pull the accelerator. Then you get the tick, trigger reset's done.
It couldn't be easier, and literally takes 15 seconds. Yeah, you don't have to think about it anymore.
So it's super easy, but the fact that it prompts you, I think that's really good to know, because you don't have to actually go in there and do it every 10 rides to make sure it's cool.
Yeah, 100%.
And the other one was the heat data.
Yes.
So that you can also go into the diagnostics and see
temperatures
of what battery, motor controller,
and motors.
Yeah. And we've got, again, we have to have protections in there for heat. We can't let the board overwork itself, although it can handle so much more. But we've definitely got heat protection parameters set in there, and they're quite high because they're very hard to hit.
I have to work. If I hit heat protection, it's either a very, very big hill or I'm sweating.
Yeah.
So,
it's not just a big hill. It's like how many times you go up that hill.
Over and over again. I have to work to put it in heat mode at 100 kilos. So I think
there's other things too in it. We've got all the low battery warnings, which is a pretty cool feature. When it gets to 10%, you get the little prompt.
And the lights changing as well.
Yep.
The lights on the actual board.
Yep. So it goes to amber, and you get a vibration in the remote. And then when it gets to 5%, there's a current step down. It goes from Corsa mode to sport. And then the lights have a flashing amber. And then when it drops down further, it's so you cannot know that you need to charge your board. It's very clear. Do we want to talk about the modes? How about?
Oh yeah,
let's talk about this. So we've completely turned it upside down compared to the GTR series. So there's 4 modes. So it starts in Eco, the next speed up is Sport, and then the one up from that is Corsa. So let's just work with these 3 first. Again, the whole ethos here is that we're trying to make it sort of like the automotive industry, and you'll often find those sort of sport modes in cars. Corsa mode, that's an interesting one. That's a speed mode that's in the Lamborghinis. Corsa means Italian for truck. And it's just like a cool word. So it's one of those things. But the power difference between all three of those modes is very, very different.
Yep.
Like it's almost double in power for each mode. And, you go from sport to Corsa, wow, completely different. And when you compare, we made sure that sport mode was actually stronger than the GTR mode. So that was important. We wanted that mode to be like, yeah. And we really wanted to have a huge gap between each of those speed modes for very good reasons, because we wanted people to use the custom mode. Some people may think like sport is not quite enough, but Corsa is just way too much. So we want people to use the Explore by Evolve app, get in, change the power level that they want, and then they can start playing around with how strong or weak they want that acceleration. So, and braking. So we really wanted to, make people use that app now.
Why is there plastic on the bottom of the carbon Hadean?
Oh, right.
I keep seeing this question pop up everywhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole, what we've done here is we've basically put so much more performance in the electric system. The massive battery, different motor controller. It's all a layered electrical assembly. And then that's allowed us to repackage the way we put it into the deck. So we then created a frame around that whole electric system. So we've saved a lot of space by doing this. And we wanted to make it as tight as possible. And the frame works beautifully. You got your forge looking frame, and the mixture of materials. You got forge, you got aluminium, you've got glass filled nylon. It all works as one system. And the frame was the biggest. That's where our IP is. At the end of the day, we've got patent protection around this now, and it's around that whole chassis. That's why there's plastic on it, because we've saved a heap of space, and the skateboards are not bigger, and there's just miles more performance.
Yeah. And we spoke about earlier, it was at no sacrifice to strength or anything like that. I saw a couple questions about if it's a battery case, would it be replaceable when you scratch it up?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something that if somebody ever wanted it replaced because they've marked it up, scratched it, whatever, they could send a battery into Evolve. We can put the internals into a new case and send it back to them so they've got a fresh looking board again.
Yeah. And I can definitely see what's going to happen. When people start getting these, there's going to be some cool customization things that's going to come out on that case itself.
What are the battery specs? We spoke about the configuration earlier, but do you want to give us a run through of what the battery ratings are? Yeah,
definitely. So we're looking at like 140 amp continuous discharge, up to 180 amp peak, 691 watt hour, 16 amp hour. It's a great performing pack, and like we cannot sort of fault it. Like it's just been performing really well over and over and over again. Yeah,
it's a 21700 4000 mAh cell. Continuous is 35A, max 45. And it's the 12S has given us that high voltage.
Explain what 12S versus 10S is.
So 12S is essentially an extra 2 cells in series, giving us an extra 8 volts essentially, or 8.4 volts over what we had in the GTR. So what that has allowed us to do is give us a slightly higher top speed, but by capping our maximum RPM, we're actually able to retain that higher top speed for almost 50% of the battery essentially.
I don't think we've told the community that we've capped our top speed on this.
No.
All right, you can bring it out now. All right.
So this still allows us to increase, and that's by retaining that top speed, it gives you that higher top speed for a longer period.
Yeah.
So you're getting more performance for longer. So that top speed comes with a higher voltage, and by having a higher voltage, obviously comes with not only more performance, but the way it's kind of delivered. So high voltage gives you that sort of bit of extra punch. It's just, that 12S has really given that big step up in performance.
Yeah, it's definitely a good move for us. And even down when you're like, 10, 15% battery, it still has good punch, and the speeds are great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was hitting around sort of 42
Have you told Jeff what you did yesterday?
Oh, so hit around 50.
No.
Oh, so we took the 107 mil wheels out.
Did you?
Yeah.
Which gear?
32. So yeah, so we'd already tested the 107s on 38,
what
and we got
voltage
around.
were you at when you tested that?
Yeah, it was full.
Okay.
Yeah, it was around 98, 99%.
And where?
Just around the side street, so it's a bit of wind around. But I got to around sort of 55.
And that you maintain that speed?
Yeah, it was sitting there. And but like I said, there was a little bit of wind. I wasn't tucked in, so I reckon if I was like sort of tucked down a bit more, we probably could have crept it up maybe a little bit more.
Man, that is fast. You're kitted up, right?
Yes.
Gosh. Which board? Carbon?
Carbon.
Yeah.
The carbon just feels so good.
Yeah.
Like I've never felt sketchy on the carbon.
I think we need to talk about this deck a bit more because we've done so much riding on this board, and I remember a few moments where we've all agreed, and it was down at Cheltenham Oval. It's a cricket ground there, beautifully cut grass, and we were down the back.
Cut it.
We helped shave some of the grass back, but we all on the same opinion. Like we're riding around, and that extra power and the wider deck and the slightly longer foot stance where you can sort of plant yourself in. We're all just going, wow! It just feels like you've got more control, and in the slides, in those turns, So the deck has made a massive difference.
I started to be able to do stuff that I couldn't do.
Yeah.
So like, especially the 180 slides,
Yeah.
or like maintaining a long drift.
Yeah.
I was doing that, and it just felt so stable that I could actually do it, and I literally couldn't before.
Yeah, and somebody said to me, they're like, "Oh, I'm sure you just go back to a GTR and do it." And like, yeah, okay, you can, but it definitely feels different. And I think with the carbon, the big thing is like by having that kind of chassis deck, I think it's almost creating like a torsional kind of
There is a
load
tiny
absorption.
bit more flex than what there is in the solid GTR.
And so if you look at something, okay, if you were to refer to go-karts, so go-kart chassis is designed to flex, to get around corners, and basically that's how they get their handling. They don't have suspension, and I think that's probably a big part playing in what we're feeling in the carbon decks.
Yeah, and it's all, that whole chassis frame is like secured and locked in by the battery case, the massive heat sink, all the trucks. It all locks it all in together. So,
Can it really go up a 35% incline?
yep, I did it in AT in New Zealand. That Baldwin Street, I know when you look at it from the videos or pictures, any hill when you do it from a picture of it doesn't look steep. But holy moly, when you stand at the bottom of Baldwin Street and you look up, I remember the first time I was like, no way, this is getting up. Yeah. And so, in AT mode going up, it was nothing to it. It just kept going. It was stronger. So if there another steeper street, maybe we should try. I don't think there is.
I think we need to go off streets now. I think we need to find
Off-road.
Yeah.
But the only problem is then you're going to lose traction.
We can find some rocks.
We did it in Tassie, you remember?
Yeah, that
Do you
big rock.
Oh, right,
That's on that ridge. Like
No. There was another section. It was on the mountain bike trails, and we tried to get up it.
Oh, it ran out of traction.
You ran out of traction. You fell down the hill.
That was like wet red mud.
Yeah, so I just want to also make something clear. So a lot of people said to me, they're like, "Oh, it didn't even look that steep," and I'm like, so Matt and Mickey were walking that day, and they couldn't walk down that trail. Like you guys both slid all the way down that. Like it was impossible to walk up or down it.
Unbelievably steep.
Yeah, it
wasn't very long,
No.
but it was just insanely steep.
I remember being at the top, dropping into it on the board, and it almost felt like a vertical drop coming like off the top into it.
Even in the video, like some of the pictures of the berms and that we're riding made it just look flat, but it wasn't. It was hard.
Yeah.
We discussed this when we were trying to put the spec sheet together, like what's the actual gradient. And we didn't really want to put it on the spec sheet, but it is whatever you can get traction for.
Yeah. That's a better way but that's an arrogant way of describing it. So we thought just say 35.
I won't do that. But we can't find a hill that it can't get up.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
In AT mode, especially, we know that AT makes the board work harder.
Yeah.
There's more traction, there's more sort of resistance on those larger wheels. You got the, different sort of PSIs. So, to get up on the AT is insane.
Yeah. And the speed you did it in the AT, like half the time of doing it on a street board.
Yeah, it didn't struggle.
Will I be able to trade in my GTR board?
No, not yet. We're not. Our business is not set up for that at this stage. You know, we're still a small business at the end of the day. We're not a big company. So we don't have a process and system set up for that. Maybe in the future. You know, we have talked about it internally. You know, how we could do it. What would some of the limitations be on the business? It's a hard one.
Yeah, and I guess because the market's it is a relatively niche market when you compare it to things like bikes and cars and things like that. So like that's another thing that plays a big factor in that side of things. So, you know, we can keep working on the back end and hopefully in the future we can provide something to the customers.
Yeah, the resale market's still pretty good too.
It is.
So there'll be a lot of people looking to get into eSKATE, not wanting to spend the tremendous amount of money for a brand new spanking board.
Yeah.
You'll always sell one.
Yeah.
And we often sell like used demos on Gumtree or eBay, and they sell quickly for us. So there's a market there for it.
We sort of covered this one. Can you put 6-inch on the Hadean?
Yes. You can put tires on. We don't have the adjusted gears for the 6-inch yet for the Hadean, so you can run them with the Hadean hubs and 66 tooth gear, or you can put on like the older all-terrain 6-inch kit with the 47T gear.
Yeah, we haven't tested the 47 tooth gear on the 7-inch on the Hadean.
And top speed.
Yeah.
Not yet.
What do you reckon that's going to do? That'll hit over 55.
I have tested 8-inch with the 66, and that got me to 49?
Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah, it was 49k an hour, I think it was. So, yeah, it's 47 on a 7-inch is going to be getting up there.
Where can I demo it?
Okay, so at the moment, you can come into our shop here on the Gold Coast. We got a couple of Hadean boards. We welcome anyone to come and have a look. You can have a go. We did our first demo event last Sunday, which was good. We just, we had some weather issues last week. We were going to do a demo that got rained out, and then we had COVID restrictions, and then we just said, weather cleared up, restrictions lifted. Hey, we got 6 boards. We're going to be here in this location. Come along. We had about 25 people rock up. That was really good. We're doing a demo event here on Saturday again. So if anyone's in Southeast Queensland, haven't seen the board, come down, have a go. Other than that, we are looking at our schedule at the moment. We are going to be doing demos in various locations over in USA, UK, France, Germany. So we're just working through our sample boards, and we're in the process of getting boards to these locations to organise some demos.
Yeah, stay tuned to the social media, and you'll hear about it there.
Yeah.
Is the name Hadean related to Hades in Greek mythology?
Look, there is some similarities there. At the end of the day, it's more about like a geological time period. Like there's a history when Earth was first formed, like 4.6 billion years ago, where it was just all fire and molten rock, and it's all around that. So, do you guys want to add anything to that?
No, I think that sums it up.
Yeah, I think it's named after the Hadean era.
Period, yeah.
Which probably derives its name from the god. Is it louder than the GTR?
No.
Yes and no,
Yeah.
I think.
I guess it's kind of like GTR. When you load it up and you really load it, the GTR is loud, and this isn't any different. But I think if you were to take off smoothly on the Hadean, it's like almost dead silent.
Yeah, way quieter.
It's so quiet.
Yep, and same with the braking. Yeah, just like normal startup, it's like you go, wow, big difference there.
And I've actually noticed, because I've been commuting on it for a while now, secretly on the train sometimes. And I've even noticed, like, if you come on a path behind people walking a dog or something like that, and you slow right down, and once you get slower, you can't hear it.
Yeah, you
can't.
can't.
So they don't know you're behind you. And even that in itself, I've noticed people just don't hear it coming.
Yeah, but when you load it up though, like you said,
It does have a noise.
The power is there. You can hear it. Sounds like a jet engine.
On acceleration, but maintaining speed, it's also quiet.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting at 25 kilometers an hour,
Yeah, it's pretty quiet.
It's pretty quiet
Yeah.
until you pull the trigger and start accelerating.
Yeah.
Maintaining is quite
I
quiet.
mean, again, so I was commuting home on like yesterday next to a GTR, and I could hear the GTR like over the Hadean. We were cruising about that 25, 30k an hour speed.
Yeah, it's definitely important too to get the belt tension right on the setup. So as we all know, like if the belts are too tight, there's going to be more noise. There's going to be less rolling capabilities. So you've got to get that belt tension right. But it just feels smoother, quieter, more efficient, and especially at high speed. But when you were talking about the GTR, did they see the board? Did they see you? Oh, okay.
So yeah, Tyler and I commuted home yesterday. So she commutes on GTR and I was commuting on the Hadean.
All right. I thought she'd be trying to steal that from you.
The Hadean?
Yeah.
Yeah, she wants it. She's already stolen my GTR. Just keep going from one board to another.
A question I've seen a couple times and it makes me giggle. Are we going to make a Hadean Stoke?
Ooh, so I wouldn't say it's going to be called Hadean, but are we going to use the technology from what's on the Hadean series onto future products? Watch this space.
When I see the question, all I imagine is riding a Stoke with the power of the Hadean. I don't think about anything else.
I'm picturing like just basically a wheelie machine. I mean, you'd have this short little board with a kicktail with all this power under it. Like,
could you imagine like trying to go full launch?
Well,
what your body
wheels,
setup would be?
The front wheels would not stay on the ground.
The Stoke currently, like to do a full launch, by the time you set yourself up and the board just lifts.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you could do a full trigger launch on a Stoke size board with that.
It could be pretty fun though.
Right? It'd be funny. Yeah. That's pretty much all the questions that we had. So let us know in the comments if there is any more questions and we'll make sure we answer them there.
Yep.
Other than that, anything else we want to say about the Hadean?
Look, I want to say thanks for everyone's support. At the end of the day, it's been a great success for us. We cannot wait, to hear the feedback, because you've seen some nice marketing from us. The real feedback is starting to, trickle out now of those who've actually ridden it. We can't wait to get it out. We're on track with all our promises in terms of our shipping. Production's well underway, and we'll be keeping everyone updated as we run through.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like, if you're thinking about it and you're wondering like, is it worth it, or what's the difference? I'm like, look for one of those demo events, go try one. Like that's going to be the biggest thing, like the most obvious way to sort of go, oh wow, like, you're going to feel all the changes straight away. So I really recommend that to anybody who's kind of in that mindset.
And that's the feedback that we saw on Sunday. Those who have a GTR and they got on the board, they were like, wow, okay, I can see there's a difference here. I can see this is not a GTR replacement. This is a completely different product. We didn't make this to replace the GTR. Yeah. This is for those that want more. And that was the genuine feedback. It was like, wow, I understand now.
Yeah, I mean, we're all riders. We get it. If you're waiting to ride the thing or you're waiting to hear other people that aren't us say what this thing is like,
yeah,
that's completely fair.
100%.
On the other hand, like massive thank you to everyone that had that trust in the brand as well.
100%.
That's super humbling to just believe that we're going to put out what we say we are.
That's it.
And you're not going to be disappointed.
No way, man. We're not going to let you down. We've got your back here.
Right on. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.